Let me be honest. I don't hate vaccinations, but I don't love them either. I guess I've been indifferent, but I have since realized I shouldn't be. The recent concerns over a pandemic outbreak, like the H1N1 scare, make me realize the importance of medical research and how it's put into practice. And in doing reading on the 1918 influenza pandemic, I discovered the remarkable revolution that occurred in American medical research around the turn of the 20th century that transformed American medicine and healthcare. This story of revolution in American medical research will look at the creation and standardization of educational and research institutions, such as the Rockefeller Institute and Johns Hopkins University, and one of the revolution's key but underappreciated researchers, Dr. Oswald Avery. American medicine prior to the 1800s was firmly stuck in the non-science-based traditions of the past. Medicine of 1800 is referred to as the withered arm of science. The U.S. was slow to follow Europe's lead in advancing new ideas in medical science, such as the germ theory and discrediting old ones like bloodletting. On September 12, 1876, the Johns Hopkins University opened. Thomas H. Huxley gave the opening speech for the university. Huxley's speech would become inspirational and informational for attendees. Huxley said that Johns Hopkins would go to any extent to find the truth, no matter where the truth leads. He also emphasized creating new knowledge rather than just retelling existing knowledge. Huxley's speech was a vote of confidence for American scientists. In 1910, Abraham Flexner published a report which transformed the training of physicians. Flexner, who graduated from the Johns Hopkins, was commissioned by the Carnegie Foundation to report on all schools of medicine in the United States and Canada. The report consisted of 2 sections. The first section was an overview of the history and the present status of medicine. The second was a state-by-state evaluation. The Flexner report said of my home state, Indiana, "The situation in the state is, thanks to the attitude of the university, distinctly hopeful, though it will take time to work it out fully. Medical education in Indiana needed to improve, but it was on the right track." Flexner examined 14 medical schools in Illinois. 10 of the 14 medical schools needed drastic improvement or elimination. Most of the medical schools only required a high school diploma or its equivalent for enrollment. However, in the College of Medicine and Surgery, a diligent search in the office desk and safe failed to discover any credentials of students now in the school. The night students of the Reliance Medical College were restricted to only look at surgical work. They saw no children's diseases, no acute medical diseases at the bedside, no contagious diseases. The Flexner report not only graded medical schools, but also gave each school specific recommendations, using the Johns Hopkins as a model. The transformation of medical school education was an ambitious goal. However, even the best trained physicians lack the tools and the knowledge needed to fight disease. The death of John D. Rockefeller's grandson was the impetus to create the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research. Simon Flexner, Abraham Flexner's older brother, was appointed director of the Research Institute. The Rockefeller Institute's mission was to link laboratory investigations with bedside observations to provide a scientific basis for disease detection, prevention, and treatment. Among the diseases the Rockefeller targeted were polio and pneumonia. Oswald Avery, a Canadian doctor and researcher, was invited to work at the Rockefeller Institute to research virulence among different strains of pneumococcus. Dr. Avery's research led to the development of the first vaccine for pneumococcal pneumonia. During the 1920s, Avery tried to determine why the pneumonia virus could change itself. He soon thought he knew why, when his thoughts were torn to shreds when the British scientist Frederick Griffith announced a discovery from his pneumonia research. He came up with the Griffith experiment. A mouse infected with both a type 2R non-violent strain without a capsule, along with a heat-kill type 3S violent strain with a capsule, produced a type 2R violent strain with a capsule within the mouse, causing it to die. This shows transformation of the genetic material being transferred. Avery restarted his work. As he grew older, he was publishing less and less to not publishing for several years. This changed in 1943. Now 66 years old, while working with Colin McLeod and Macklin McCarty, Avery made a momentous discovery. He discovered that deoxyribonucleic acid acts like the transforming principle.
He worked with pneumococci, which are bacteria, and he noticed that they could transmit strains of virulence. That's how much disease it causes among each other, so that he could take a non-virulent strain of pneumococci and turn it into a virulent strain. And so then he went in search of how that happened, and he discovered that DNA was the substance that translated into inheritance.
At the time, he could not make a claim that huge. The transforming principle proposes that a transforming agent changes the cell to produce something other than what is normally produced. Until Avery, this change-producing force was unknown. Avery discovered what this transforming agent was. Deoxyribonucleic acid, at the time, was not thought important as it was too simple an acid to carry hereditary information on its own. Proteins were thought to be the gene carriers.
The ones that were resisting were the ones that had this pretty well established view that the DNA was not diverse enough to have any possible biological activity of that sort, and only proteins among things that we knew about could be considered. So that was the dogma, and it took a while to break that down in general.
Deoxyribonucleic acid was coined after they discovered that it was the method of inheritance, and D means without. Oxy is oxygen. Okay, ribo is referring to the ribose sugar that is the backbone of the DNA and RNA. RNA is ribonucleic acid, and it is the backbone of the structure is ribose, and deoxy means that it's ribose without an oxygen in it, okay? And the nucleic acid part of it refers to the fact that it was found in the nucleus.
After Avery submitted his report on the transforming principle, the Nobel Prize Committee was hesitant to award him the Nobel. Scientists of the period believed proteins were the gene carriers and weren't ready to accept that the simple acids were the gene carriers. Even after Watson and Crick backed Avery up and proving his correctness through the double helix, Avery did not receive a Nobel. As Oswald Avery once said in a letter to his brother, "It's lots of fun to blow bubbles, but wiser to prick them yourself before someone else tries to." The Johns Hopkins University and the Rockefeller Institute led the way towards fulfilling Huxley's challenge to expand medical knowledge and, more broadly, scientific knowledge. Because the U.S. reformed and transformed its educational and research institutions, it could challenge Europe as a top contributor to physiological and medical research. As you can see from this list of Nobel recipients, graduates of the Johns Hopkins University are well represented from the 1930s onwards. This revolution in the creation and standardization in institutions conducting medical research and education allowed for the next great revolution, DNA research. Without the push to satisfy Huxley's challenge to expand medical research, we may not have as quickly seen one of the 20th century's greatest revolutions.